Hello, my name is Ben McGahee with McGahee Mathematics, and welcome to this video lesson on linear equations. So we're going to learn how to solve linear equations for a missing variable. So let's take a look at an example of how to do this. Let's say if we have x plus 2 equals 7. So we want to solve for the variable x, so some number plus 2 equals 7. So you might be able to do this in your head, but let's see how we can do it algebraically to find the missing value. So here we notice that we're adding some number 2 to get 7, and we need to get the variable by itself. So if we have positive 2, to get the 2 over to the other side, we have to do the opposite operation. So we subtract 2 to both sides. So what we do to one side, we do to the other. And then you see that the 2 minus 2, that's 0. So it just cancels out. And then we have x here. And then that equals 7 minus 2, which equals 5. So x equals 5. So in order to check to make sure this is true, you can plug it back, this number back into the original equation. X plus 2 equals 7, so x equals 5. So 5 plus 2 equals 7. And we know that that's true because we know 5 plus 2 is 7. So that checks out. Okay, so now let's look at another example where we have y minus 9 equals negative 13. So y minus 9 equals negative 13. So we're trying to solve for y, get that by itself. So we have to do something with the negative 9. So we look at the operation, we see subtraction, so that we have to do the opposite operation to get rid of that 9 to the other side. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. So negative 9 plus 9 is 0, so those will cancel. And then we just left with y, y equals, and then we add negative 13 plus 9. So if you remember adding the negative and positive, you have to subtract, and so we know 13 minus 9, that's 4, but we have to take the sign of the larger number, that's 13, so it's negative. So negative 13 plus 9 is negative 4. And that would be our answer. So you can go back and check. So we have negative 4 minus 9. Is that equal negative 13? Absolutely, because when you have two numbers with the same signs, they're both negative, you add them together, and we know that 4 plus 9 is 13, and then you take the sign of that number, so you get negative 13. So you can also think of the negatives, when you're adding them together, you get even more negative. Say if you lose $4 one day, that's negative 4, and then you lose $9 the next day, negative 9, then you know you've lost $13 or negative 13 altogether. So two negatives added together gives you another negative number. Okay. Now let's look at another example. It'll be a little different, but let's say we have something like negative 5, let's say z equals 10. So negative 5z equals 10. Here we have negative 5z. That's kind of thought of as negative 5 times z. So we're using multiplication. So we need to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division, to get rid of this negative 5 to get to the other side. So we have to divide by negative 5 to both sides. So the negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1, so those will cancel. And then we're just left with just z. 1 times z is just z. And then that equals 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2, because negative positive divided by negative is negative. So if the signs are opposite signs, your answer will be negative if you're multiplying or dividing. So z equals negative 2. So you can plug that back in to check. You get negative 5, and then we have z negative 2, and we know that negative times negative is positive, so that 5 times 2 is 10. So we know that that works. Very good. So the next example is, you might expect it, but let's see what we have here. We'll have something like t over 8. This equals negative, let's say, or let's just do positive 6. Okay, so t divided by 8 equals 6. So here we see that we got division. We have 8 on the bottom. So how do we get rid of the 8 and bring it to the other side with a 6? We have to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication. So let's multiply by 8 to both sides. And 8, these 8's will cancel, because 8 divided by 8 is 1. And then we're just left with t here. So t equals 6 times 8. In times tables, that's 48. And that would be our answer. So t equals 48. And then you can plug that in to check. You do 48 divided by 8, and you should get 6. And that checks out. So for now on, I'm not going to ask you to plug them in right now, but at least during the lesson. But you can do that on your own just to check, to make sure your solution works. Okay, so let's look at maybe more of like a two-step linear equation to solve. And let's say if we have something like like 3a plus 4 equals 22. So in this case, we need to get the 3a by itself. So we need to get the 4 to the other side. And we see this is addition, plus 4, so we have to subtract, do the opposite. Minus 4 both sides. So those are going to cancel. And 4 minus 4 is 0. And then we just have 3a equals 22 minus 4. That's 18. So we have 3a equals 18. And now to get a by itself, we have 3 times a, so that's multiplication. So we had to do the opposite, which is division. Divide by 3, both sides. So those will cancel. So we're left with a, and then that equals 18 divided by 3, that's going to be 6. So A equals 6. Okay, and then you can plug that back into the original equation. 3A plus 4 equals 22. And you can see that that's true. Okay, so we'll do one last problem here. Let's say we have negative 7 n minus 35 equals 42. So we need to get the negative 7n by itself. And we see we have subtraction with minus 35. So we got to do the opposite operation and add 35 to both sides. So negative 35 plus 35 is 0. So those will cancel out. And then we're left with negative 7n equals 42 plus 35. That's going to be 77. And then the last step is multiply or divide. So we see multiply, it's negative 7 times n, so we divide. It's negative 7 to both sides. So those will cancel. So we have n equals 77 divided by negative 7. So the signs are opposite. The 77 is positive, negative 7 is negative, so our answer will be negative 11. So n equals negative 11. Okay, so there's some good introduction to solving linear equations, like one-step and two-step linear equations. And in our next video, we'll go over solving some linear equations using a distributive property and solving linear equations with variables on both sides, and we might include some fractions as well. So we just want to start off basic. Again, my name is Ben McGahee, and I hope you enjoyed this lesson on linear equations.